These are my thriller recommendations. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then my name is Chloe and I make bookish videos twice a week here on my channel. So if you haven't already, then make sure to click the subscribe button, click the bell button to get notifications every time I upload a video. For today's video, I thought that I would make a thriller recommendations video. So I've got a lot of thrillers with me right now. These are definitely not all the thrillers that I've read. These aren't even all the thrillers that I've read that I've enjoyed. These are just the thrillers that I happen to have with me right now. I thoroughly enjoyed all of the thrillers that I have with me right now. Obviously, I would not recommend you something if I did not enjoy it. So everything I recommend in this video, everything I recommend in general is something that I enjoyed. So I'm not actually going to tell you the rating that I gave for every individual book, but just know that while some of them may not be 5 stars, they may just be 3 stars, I still really enjoyed them. Otherwise I wouldn't recommend them to you. We're just going to try and make it short and snappy, get through these really quickly. I don't have that long time to film anyway, so we're just going to go. I'm going to start off with the thriller that got me into this genre, the first adult thriller that I actually remember reading. My prompt for this book is if you like dual perspectives, if you like dual narratives, if you like massive plot twists. I believe this book, in my opinion, from what I've seen, this book is one of the first thrillers that had the massive plot twist that everyone knows about if they've read the thriller or watched the film. So you may be familiar with this. So the book that I am talking about is, if you've not guessed it already, it is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I don't actually know if it's Gillian or Gillian, but I've always pronounced it Gillian. So we're gonna say it's Gillian Flynn. And I think everyone and their mum's dog knows about this book, and there's really not much to say. Obviously I really enjoyed it. It's the thriller that got me into the genre, and the plot twist is pretty phenomenal, and yes, that is all I'm going to say. If you like plot twists, if you like dual perspectives and dual narratives, then pick this book up. Along the lines of dual narratives, we're going to go for some books that have multiple perspectives. These 2 books are written by the same author, and these are her only 2 thriller books, but it appears that she's got a certain type of, like a certain way of writing, because these 2 books are very similar in the way that they were written, and I really enjoyed both of them. Very good thrillers. So if you like multiple perspectives, if you like a large cast of characters in your thrillers, if you like a lot of relationships between characters, if you like really relationship driven thrillers, then I would go for either of Lucy Foley's books. The first one that she wrote was The Hunting Party, and this is really enjoyable. Really recommend it, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be in a recommendations video. The second one is The Guest List, and yes, they both include a lot of different characters. In my opinion, these books are very driven by the relationships between the characters. In particular, the plots are very focused on relationships between characters, as well as the plot twists. So if you like big casts of characters, then definitely pick up either of these books or both of them. Here I've got another book that I spoke about in my January wrap up, and which also has a very large cast of characters. It's a very complex book, so therefore I would say if you like complex thrillers that have a lot of characters in them, a lot of different timelines and plot lines all interweaving to become this really interesting thriller, then I would recommend The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. This book is just so complex to the point where it's almost confusing. If you have the brain capacity to deal with that, then I'd definitely recommend it. I mean, I still managed to enjoy it and I still understood it. It was just walking the line of being potentially a bit confusing, but that could just be me. So I still really recommend this book. I highly rate it. It was a lot of fun, and it is also great if you are not super into thrillers that are solely based around death. I would recommend this next book if you are looking for a classic thriller with a really messed up main character. If you are not against reading about slightly disturbing, shocking, grim things, then I would definitely recommend Misery by Stephen King. Again, this is a very, very well-known book, well-loved book, especially here on BookTube amongst people that are a big fan of Stephen King. Misery is a massive deal, and it makes sense why. It's a really, really good thriller. So definitely go and check that out if you're interested in Stephen King. There's not really much to say aside from the fact that the main antagonist in this book is the epitome of what an antagonist is, and it gets to the point where she's almost so stereotypical that it's like almost difficult to deal with, but at the same time it just walks the line of being not quite too crazy, but at the same time she's a really messed up character and just really a great form of escapism, really different from the majority of the people you meet in real life, and it's just quite fun to read. If you're a bit cynical like me, then this book is just a hoot and a half, so I would definitely recommend it. We're gonna carry along the lines of messed up characters. This next book, you've probably heard of it either as the book or as the TV show. There's 2 seasons of this TV show. It's on Netflix. If you haven't guessed it already, that is You by Caroline Kepnes. I would recommend this book if you like really messed up psychopathic characters and you like the perspective of the psychopathic character. So the difference between something like Misery and You is that essentially Misery is written from the perspective of the protagonist, Paul Sheldon, whereas this is written from the perspective of the antagonist, who is essentially a psychopathic stalker called Joe. Nearly forgot his name. Psychopathic stalker called Joe, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to tell you what this is about, although you probably already know because the show is such a massive thing. Is it the best thriller in the world? No. Is it really interesting to read? Definitely. Do I recommend it despite the fact that you've already watched the TV show? If you have already watched the TV show, definitely. I'm pretty sure I watched the first season of the TV show before I read this book, and then I read this book afterwards, and I still very much enjoyed it. If you do enjoy really messed up characters, then this is just such a great book to read. I think we're going to take a little break from the really messed up characters, and we're going to go on to something that's a little bit of a easier thriller, I guess. Not quite as messed up characters in these thrillers. If you're looking for a YA mystery thriller, then I would recommend anything by Karen M. McManus. I have not read her most recent book, The Cousins, but I really want to. I really enjoyed all the other books that I've read by her. As you can see, I've only got 2 here, and that is because the first of her books, One Can Keep a Secret, that's not it. The first of her books, One of Us is Lying, is currently with my sister, but I've got her second book, which is Two Can Keep a Secret, which is a completely different story, and then One of Us is Next, which is the sequel to One of Us is Lying. They're not the best thrillers in the world, they're not mind-blowing, they're just really enjoyable YA mystery thrillers. If that's the kind of thing that you enjoy, then definitely pick them up. Going down the same sort of path with YA, if you want a YA thriller that is leaning more towards horror and has a bit of body horror and gore and violence and just a bit of disgustingness to it, then this is a book that you've probably heard a lot about anyway on BookTube. It was particularly massive, I think, a couple of years ago. And that book is Wilder Girls by Rory Powers. Now, I really want to... Her name's not Rory Powers. And that is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. She's got a second book that's come out recently, I believe, which I also really want to read, but I haven't got my hands on it yet, but hopefully I will do that soon because I enjoyed this book so much. This is kind of a YA survival thriller. It's about survival, it's about friendship, it's about just all the best bits of YA put together with some of the best bits of thriller and horror and just all mashed up, and it's just super interesting. It was really fun to read, and because it's YA, it was also quite a quick read. I definitely want to reread this at some point, and definitely recommend it if you like YA but you want something that's a bit more hardcore. If you have already read Wilder Girls, or that is the sort of thing that you tend to read but you want to get more into the adult version of that kind of thriller slash horror, then another horror book that sort of leans itself towards thriller. So this isn't necessarily a thriller, but it is definitely, it has suspense in it, it has intrigue in it like most thrillers do. So if you like really gory stuff, you like body horror, you like just suspense and disgustingness, then a book that is quite similar to Wilder Girls but is more the adult version that I would recommend is The Troop by Nick Cutter. I read this recently, this is in my January wrap up. I really enjoyed it. All the hype it's been getting on BookTube is definitely worth it. It is just such a good book. I can't wait to read more from this author. And yeah, if you like really disgusting things, then read The Troop. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to leave it at that. If you want a thriller that has got sort of cult vibes, has got weird family vibes, then I would recommend The Family Upstairs. This is really quite a mystery thriller. I believe it's got a dual timeline. I can't quite remember, I read this a while ago, but I really enjoyed it. As someone that's interested in cult books and things that sort of lean itself towards a cult, this isn't necessarily about a cult. I'm not going to diverge into that, but essentially this has got, at some points it's got vibes of being quite culty. The thing that really intrigued me about this was the blurb, so I'm just going to quickly tell you roughly what this is about. Essentially, this is about a house. Everyone in this house is dead, essentially, and the people that go to inspect this house find that there's actually a baby living in the house in her cot, and she's been there presumably for a while because these corpses are quite decomposed, but she is well and she's been fed and she's been looked after. So it's just a question of, how did that happen? Why is it like that? A lot of intrigue, a lot of mystery, a lot of fun. I recommend this book. A thriller that is great if you want a thriller that is centered around a mysterious death but also has quite a bit of representation in it is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I have not read her other very popular book, Little Fires Everywhere, but I would like to read that at some point. But this one was really enjoyable. I picked it up secondhand from a charity shop and it was just a very enjoyable thriller and a really well written thriller, and I can see why Celeste Ng gets a lot of hype here on BookTube, and it was just really enjoyable. So this has got Asian representation because Celeste Ng is Asian herself, and it was very nice to read a thriller that wasn't just about white people like the majority of thrillers are. So this definitely has got me more interested in looking for thrillers that centre around non-white characters, and this was very good. If you want a thriller that's got a very interesting premise, if you want a thriller that centres around people doing bad things to other people in order to protect themselves, then I would recommend The Chain. The premise of this book is that you have to abduct someone else's child in order to get your child back, and it's a chain, almost like chainmail, if you ever got that back when that was a thing. And it's just a really interesting concept. There's some other stuff going on in this, there's a bit of romance in this. It was a very interesting read, it was a very quick read. Wasn't the best written thriller, it did leave me just a tiny bit disappointed, but it was still definitely worth reading, so I definitely recommend this if that sort of premise is something that you find interesting. And last but not least, if you want a thriller that is very atmospheric and is very dark and mysterious and just weird and you don't know what's going on. And I would recommend I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This book is just a wild ride. It's hard to explain. I'm not going to try and explain it. I've already spoken about this in my January wrap up. If you like weird, mysterious, don't know what the hell's going on thrillers, then this is the one that you would like to read. A lot of people have spoken about this on BookTube, so I'm not going to say much more about this, but I 100% recommend this, obviously because it's in my recommendations video, but I think you should go and read this. So those were all the thrillers that I decided to recommend in this video. If you want to see more videos like this, then definitely make sure to comment down below or give this video a like so that I know that that's the sort of stuff that you like. If there's a genre in particular that you would like to hear some of my recommendations from, then comment that down below. I will also leave my Instagram link in the description below. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, as I said, give it a like, comment, subscribe. That's all I'm going to say for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in my next one. Bye bye.